Welcome to the Deep Dive. You're here because you want to get smart, fast on important topics without getting bogged down in endless details.
That's the goal.
Exactly. So today we're really digging into what makes cost-conscious food business owners in Memphis tick, specifically how they choose their suppliers.
Yeah, we've got this great analysis from Creating Value LLC. It's called Deep Customer Psyche Analysis for Cost-Conscious Memphis Food Businesses.
Right, and our mission here is basically to cut through the noise, figure out what really drives their decisions.
And we're talking about a real mix of businesses, aren't we?
Yeah.
Restaurants, caterers.
Food trucks, yeah, even those home-based chefs doing amazing things. But they all share this, what the report calls a shoestring budget mentality.
Definitely. Very specific mindset.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Who are these folks? What's at the core of how they operate?
Well, the first thing that jumps out is just how resourceful they are. I mean, this analysis paints a picture of fiercely practical people. Often they're the owner-operators themselves, working crazy long hours.
Right. Doing it all.
Exactly. And for them, it's all about getting the job done efficiently and keeping those overheads, brutally low.
Forget the fancy stuff.
Totally. Forget fancy presentations. They're focused squarely on reliability and, the absolute best prices they can possibly find.
That no-frills thing you mentioned, it really seems central. And it sounds like their decisions, especially about suppliers, aren't really swayed by, standard marketing.
Not really, no. There's the strong DIY vibe, and also kind of a healthy skepticism towards the really big distributors.
Like Cisco or U.S. Foods.
Exactly. The feeling is those guys are maybe geared towards bigger operations, bigger budgets, and they often have contracts these smaller places just want to avoid.
Makes sense.
So instead, they put huge trust in word of mouth. Recommendations from other owners, people facing the same daily stuff.
Like that Memphis example in the analysis.
Yeah, that was spot on. Someone local telling another owner, go to Restaurant Depot for this, maybe Gordon's for that. It just shows how powerful those peer connections are.
So they value straight talk.
Absolutely. Straightforwardness, honesty. Tell it like it is, no fluff. Flashy marketing. They'll wait and see if there are actual savings if the supplier actually gets their reality.
Okay, so stripping it all back.
Yeah.
What's the main driver? Why are they always looking for that right supplier? What are they really after?
Well, if you connect the dots, their main goal isn't just surviving, it's actually making a profit. And both those things depend on keeping operations incredibly lean.
Right.
So they're constantly looking for that reliable partner, the one who can give them the best prices consistently without any hassle or, hidden costs.
But it's more than just the price tag, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. The analysis points this out really clearly. They really appreciate feeling respected, supported as small business owners.
Little things matter.
Huge things, actually, like a genuinely helpful staff member or just a quick checkout line. That can make a massive difference in their day, which is already super demanding.
So feeling respected is almost like a cost saving in itself.
Yes.
Reduces the stress.
That's a great way to put it. It reduces that sort of emotional tax of running the business and maybe makes a slightly higher price worth it if the service is clearly better. It's an investment in their own focus, really.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like their day-to-day is often, pretty precarious, a real tightrope walk when your margins are that thin.
Oh, absolutely. The kinds of setbacks they face, it really shows you how fragile things can be. Equipment breaking down, sudden ingredient shortages.
Not just small problems.
Yeah, these can genuinely threaten the business when money's that tight. And that feeling of being totally alone when crisis hits, like the fridge dying on a Friday night, that's just intense pressure.
Wow.
And then there's this constant juggle, right? Time versus cost. Do I spend hours driving to the cash and carry to save a bit?
Or pay more for delivery to get that time back.
Exactly. It's relentless. And that constant worry, will I have what I need? Can I afford it? That takes a real emotional toll. You hear that frustration about food costs always going up. It really captures that pressure.
Yeah, it paints a really clear picture of the daily stress. And it seems like these pressures, these experiences, they really shape their biases, right? And their priorities when choosing suppliers.
Precisely. They get into these routines, often sticking with familiar places like Restaurant Depot or Sam's Club, just because they know them or it's what everyone else does.
The known quantity.
Right. But underneath that, there's a really low tolerance for being treated badly or having their time wasted. If a supplier messes up, is unreliable, costs them time or money, they'll look elsewhere.
No hesitation.
Not much, no. Ultimately, like the analysis says, it just boils down to this personal value equation. Price, convenience, and trust. That's the formula.
Price, convenience, trust. Got it.
And it's interesting, they are willing to try new local suppliers, like Lit Restaurant Supply mentioned in the report, but only if that supplier really proves they understand and can meet those basic needs.
The proof's in the pudding, so to speak.
Exactly. And ideally, that proof comes from other local owners they trust saying, yeah, these guys get it.
Okay, let's dig into those specifics then. What are the absolute biggest hurdles these owners are facing? What does the analysis say ranks highest?
Well, number one on the list, and this probably won't shock you, it's just the constant battle to keep costs down.
Always comes back to cost.
Always. With margins so tight, it's the struggle that shapes almost every single decision. You know, there's that quote in there about how lots of suppliers have the same stuff. So it really just comes down to price and convenience.
Right. Who makes it cheapest and easiest?
Exactly. And that story about the pizzeria owners buying a van just to haul supplies from Restaurant Depot.
Wow.
That just shows the extreme lengths they'll go to for real cash savings. They're not just glancing at prices. They're actively, constantly hunting for ways to trim costs.
Because every single dollar makes a difference. Okay, so cost is king. What comes next? You mentioned this tension, time and convenience versus cost.
Yeah, this is a huge one. Convenience is often what gets sacrificed because, you know, they usually can't afford someone just to handle purchasing or they just don't have the spare time themselves.
So the owner ends up doing the shopping.
Very often, yeah. And while, sure, the big distributors could deliver and save time, the costs or the minimum orders often just don't work for them financially.
So they're stuck going to the cash and carry places.
Right. Which, as we saw from some of those comments, like the Instacart shopper complaining about Restaurant Depot being disorganized.
Yeah, and the complaints about waiting forever in line.
Exactly. It can be incredibly time-consuming and just infuriating. You can feel the anger and exhaustion in their feedback.
They just want a faster way that doesn't cost a fortune.
Desperately, because for these owners, time isn't just money, it's the thing that limits their ability to actually run the business. So if a supplier saves them time, that's huge value beyond just the price.
It's like time is their most precious resource, maybe even more than money sometimes. But they're always forced to trade one for the other.
That's a perfect way to put it.
And it sounds like the actual experience of shopping at these places can be a major headache too.
Oh, yeah. Poor customer service, the whole shopping experience. It's a really significant pain point. It affects them practically, but emotionally too.
How so?
Well, they often talk about feeling undervalued or sometimes like actively disrespected by the bigger stores. We saw those examples, right? Unhelpful staff, rude staff, the stores being so messy it's hard to find anything efficiently, even stories of unprofessional behavior.
Yeah, that story about the longtime customer getting their membership revoked after a conflict with a manager was pretty shocking.
It really highlights this feeling that maybe these big chains just don't care about the small independent businesses.
And even just the everyday stuff, like not enough cashiers.
Exactly. Long waits because they're understaffed. It all adds up to this feeling of frustration and this real desire to find a supplier who actually treats them like a valued customer.
Yeah.
You know, not just another transaction.
So it's definitely not just about the transaction. There's a big emotional piece there. And what about getting the actual products? Is that reliable?
That's another major source of anxiety. Inventory inconsistency, stockouts. It's a huge problem at these cash and carry places.
They can't afford to run out of key stuff.
Absolutely not. But it happens all the time. They show up at their usual spot and bam, a key item is just gone.
Like the examples in the report, cheese being out of stock.
Yeah, the owner from Wisconsin mentioned that about Restaurant Depot and cheese, and another person saying they run out of something important 2 or 3 times a month.
That must cause panic.
Total panic. It means last-minute scrambles, maybe changing the menu, disappointing customers, potentially lost sales. So consistency is incredibly important.
They just need to know it'll be there.
Exactly. A supplier who reliably has what they say they have. That's worth a lot. It's peace of mind, really. Reliable stock means they can sleep better at night.
And it's not only the everyday ingredients, is it? What about bigger items, equipment?
That's right. Getting affordable kitchen equipment or even sourcing more specialized ingredients, that's another real challenge.
Because new equipment is expensive.
Massively expensive. So a lot of them rely on used stuff or just keep using older equipment, which then brings up worries about reliability, right?
Finding good used stuff or decent new prices without getting ripped off.
Yeah, that's a constant background worry. And if they have a unique menu, finding those specific, maybe less common ingredients or supplies affordably and reliably, that can be tough too.
Like that Yelp review. mentioned for Lit.
Exactly. Where the person said, okay, maybe prices are a bit higher, but they didn't need a membership or tax ID, and Lid had those harder to find items.
So they're willing to pay a little more for that kind of value
It
sometimes?
shows they are, yeah. Especially for things they don't buy every day, but that are still absolutely essential. Access and convenience matter there, too.
Okay, so we've heard a lot about the struggles.
Huh.
But what does it actually sound like from them? From the owners on the ground? What's the language, the emotion?
Yeah, the analysis did a great job capturing that voice. And the quotes, they're really powerful. You hear this mix of frustration, definitely exasperation, but also just sheer grit, determination.
Like that quote about Restaurant Depot being so messy, you cannot find anything.
Yeah, that just says so much about wasted time, right? Or calling it the devil because of inventory problems. That's strong language.
Definitely shows the emotional intensity.
It does. And even the mixed reviews, like the person who said floor staff were helpful, but the cashier was rude, it highlights how inconsistent the experience can be.
And the complaints about long waits, managers not caring.
Paints a really clear picture. They feel like their time isn't valued. And then you get the really blunt stuff, like absolutely horrible.
No room for doubt there.
None at all. Or the owner switching $100K a year in business away from Restaurant Depot just because the front-end experience was so bad consistently. That shows they reach a breaking point.
But you also mentioned determination.
Yeah, like the owners buying the van for the Restaurant Depot runs, they know there are problems, stockouts, costs. But they find a way. They keep going.
And there was some positive feedback, too.
Oh, yeah. Like the comment praising Lit Jr., unbeatable prices, friendly staff. That shows what does work for them.
But even new places aren't perfect.
Right. There was that negative comment about a different Lit location, about service and unprofessional staff. So consistency is key everywhere.
And that comparison of GFS potato prices to Aldi.
Yeah. That just screams price skepticism, doesn't it? They are always comparing, always checking.
Wow. It really does sound like an emotional roller coaster just trying to run their supply chain.
It really does. But like you said, through it all, that determination to make the business work shines through. And yeah, their language is direct. It's real. Basic terms, prices, service, waiting, because that's their daily reality.
Okay, so knowing all this, understanding their frustrations, their unmet needs, how can a supplier, say, like Lit Restaurant Supply, actually position itself effectively against the big guys? Restaurant Depot, Gordon Food Service. What's the opportunity?
Well, this is where it gets really practical, I think. If you look at all those consistent complaints about Restaurant Depot, you know, the chaos, the long waits, the membership hassles, the bad service reports, the stock issues, that whole impersonal warehouse vibe.
Yeah, it's a long list.
It is. So Lit has this like really clear path to differentiate itself. They can focus on creating a more organized, easier to shop environment.
And it less stressful.
Exactly. Prioritize faster, friendlier service, get rid of membership requirements entirely, really focus on making customers feel valued. Work hard on reliable stock levels, and just generally make the store experience more comfortable. You could almost pitch it as, you know, warehouse prices without the warehouse headache.
Ah, solving the hate part of the love-hate relationship.
Precisely. There's a huge opening there.
Okay, that makes sense against Restaurant Depot. What about Gordon Food Service? They're already open to the public, no membership. Seems like a different challenge.
It is slightly different, yeah. GFS has that convenience factor of being open to everyone, but where Lit can potentially win is on price and, crucially, on product selection tailored for professionals.
How so?
Well, GFS, while convenient, can often be pricier. And because they serve the general public too, their selection might be broader, but maybe not as deep in terms of the specific professional grade stuff or the real bulk sizes businesses need.
Okay.
So Lit can aim for equal or better pricing on key items and offer a more focused, comprehensive range for food businesses, especially if they push things like affordable used equipment.
Play up to specialization.
Yeah, and lean into being local, building those relationships. The message could be something like, smart owners compare. For the best pro value and selection, they choose Lit.
Gotcha. And what about the warehouse clubs? Costco, Sam's Club? Some owners must use them too.
Oh, they're definitely in the mix. Owners look everywhere for savings. But again, Lit's advantage is specialization.
Right. Clubs have membership fees.
Yep. And their selection is super broad, not food service specific. Lit can highlight its true commercial bulk options, the pro-grade brands that meet regulations, and unique offerings like used equipment.
So position Lit as the more complete, tailored solution.
Exactly. The idea is Lit could potentially replace multiple trips to different places, be the one-stop shop that's just as affordable, maybe even more so, for what they actually need.
So it really boils down to hitting those specific pain points we identified, delivering the low prices they absolutely need,
Non-negotiable.
but doing it without all the negative experiences, the
Yeah.
time wasting, the feeling disrespected that they seem to get elsewhere.
That's the core opportunity. Cost is number one, absolutely, but convenience, good service, reliable stock, these are huge factors that can really swing their decision.
So suppliers who get that right.
Suppliers who really address those frustrations, like Lit seems positioned to do, have a real shot at building strong, loyal relationships with these Memphis food business owners. It's a vital part of the local economy.
This has been really enlightening, a fascinating deep dive into this specific group in Memphis. It just hammers home how important it is to look past just the price tag, right?
Wow.
To understand the real needs, the frustrations, even the emotions of your customers.
Yeah, and it leads to a really interesting final thought for everyone listening, I think. How can you take these kinds of insights about the specific pains and needs of this group, these Memphis food owners, and apply that thinking to understanding your target audience, whatever industry you're in?
Good question.
Think about the often overlooked stuff, the emotional factors, the practical daily hassles that really drive decisions, often way beyond just the bottom line price.
Like, what are the hidden hates your customers might be putting up with?
Exactly. What are they grudgingly tolerating just to get the love part of your product or service? And what could you do strategically to get rid of those frustrations? That's how you build real loyalty, stronger relationships, and ultimately, yeah, a more profitable business.
It really comes back to truly understanding the customer, doesn't it? In all their complexity.
That's always the first indispensable step. Know your customer to serve them well.